Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. Hope you're doing well. We got a hell of a show lined up for you today. We got one of the best to ever do it, a dear friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated, Bo Butner, in the green room. We're going to be talking all things Mountain Motor Pro Stock, talking drag racing, talking the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals this past weekend. What else do we got cooking? We've got, oh my goodness, we're staring down. We're in the thick of things right now. I was thinking about, Mike and I were actually having this conversation last week, all the big events that were going on this weekend. We had the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals in Charlotte. We had Prep Kings in Virginia. We had Donald Long's Radial Outlaw Series taking over Rockingham Dragway. Great to see Rockingham back in the news. It's one of my favorite drag strips on the planet Earth. So it's great to see major events happening at Rockingham again. But a ton of good stuff going on in the sport of drag racing. Remember, click like, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing. And as always, thank you for joining us here. It's not lost on us the privilege that it is to get to join you all to talk all things drag racing every week, and it wouldn't be any fun without all of y'all. So without any further ado, JT in the house as always. We're down a man, Mike Carpenter doing the birthday dance. His little girl Caroline turned 6 today, so they're running around. Shout out to those guys. But we got Bo and JT in the house, and I think you guys will more than make up for old Michael. What's going on, Bo? You had a hell of a weekend, eh?
Good weekend, and it's about time, dude. I've got a great relationship with Jason Johnson and Nikki Johnson, the whole JHG deal, and they've like jumped in with 2 feet in drag racing, which we're all very fortunate for. But at that time, I mean, when we started talking about, hey, let's bring a team out, let's race, and we probably would have lost a lot of bet or money that I wouldn't have already won a major race for him. I mean, I won some Sportsman stuff, won some bracket stuff with his name on the card, but to get him in a class that he's actually sponsoring and to have a badass car like this I'm driving and to get the win light, #1 qualifier, we had a great weekend. So very excited for Jason.
Great weekend. I was looking at the results on shout out to Rick Green and the guys at dragracecentral.com, but I was just pulling this up and it's like Bo Butner, low ET, 620 with a 5, which Brett Kepner confirms is the second quickest pass ever made by a Mountain Motor Pro Stock car. JR Carr back in 2020 at St. Louis went 617 with a 9. So you're right there in the hunt. But you had low ET, top speed, win the race. You were just telling us in the green room you also got best appearing car. So you like swept the joint. I mean,
that car is badass.
Yeah, you can't complain. I mean, you all saw the cars before, but they actually gave best appearing to Rainy Lynn and mine. So it's kind of a duel. Both cars individually are cool, but they're badass together. And I mean, because it's kind of a flip-flop kind of deal. But yeah, people love them. Of course, Richard's like, oh, them things are ugly, need to be red, blah, blah, blah. But he can't deny it. I mean, I got some good friends here that wrap this stuff for us, that's done all my Halloween stuff. But, I mean, of course, Rainy Lynn came up with the whole deal, and she does well at designing stuff and making it pop and look good.
100%. Well, we got to talk about Rainy Lynn and this whole journey and how this has been for her. But I just want to, what's your take on Mountain Motor Pro Stock? Like it's been in this weird, in some ways, it feels like it went through a season of like purgatory where they weren't really sure what was happening. And now, fast forward to 2024 and there's like, holy hell, there's a lot of places to run those cars. You've got a multi-race NHRA series. Like you said, JHG is the title rights sponsor of the Mountain Motor Pro Stock Series and NHRA. You've got a PDRA National Event Series. We had the second annual Mountain Motor Pro Stock Invitational at the World Series to start the year. Like, have you had an interest in Mountain Motor Pro Stock stuff in the past? Because I always hear, like, Rick Jones, who's someone I think we can all agree is a very respected voice out here. Rick told me they are hands down the funnest, the most exciting and funnest car there is to drive.
They're cool. I've been fortunate to drive a Pro Mod. I mean, in different types, nitrous, turbo. But I mean, so I grew up in drag racing in IHRA days. So I never was really around a lot of NHRA stuff when I started racing, but I would watch it. But you know, that's Pro Mod, like Scotty Cannons, and then you had Doug Kirk. Billy Huff lives across the river from us, so I was very familiar with all the pro IHRA stuff. And Mountain Motor Pro Stock was cool back then. And did I ever really never had a desire to do anything pro until John DeForian, actually, we ran the second round there for years. Like, you need to come drive one of these things. You need to come drive. And I'm like, oh, okay, if whatever happened. But yeah, it just happened to where Randy and I could both have a competitive 2-car team for this season, and probably to move on for other years. But it's a great group of guys. Everybody has taken to us. They've appreciated us. I mean, NHRA even came, and they're really appreciating Randy Lynn because she's one of the first. She might have been the first woman to run in PDRA in Mountain Motor Car. So it's I think they were telling me that, but I
think so.
They are fast. They're cool. They drive totally different than a 500-inch car. But I mean, I'm very impressed with the way Randy's taken to it. But she's not drove. I mean, she didn't even drive a clutch car on the street until I put her in one of those. So there was no practice other than that car, and it's been great. And she actually, I'm gonna be honest, does a better job of shifting than I do going down track. So she's going to be very good. I think she knows no different. So I look for her to win some rounds and definitely some races.
I remember talking to Vincent Nobile, and Vincent told me that he'd never driven a car like with a stick shift before he got into a pro stock car, and it clearly didn't slow him down. So maybe it's not an all bad thing, right? Like, because I guess she's not going into it with any sort of bad, like she's not, no bad habits, nothing. Like, she can. And you can't ask for a better group of people to have around you as far as like teaching you and getting you better at it. What has it been like working with the flying meatball, Frank Gugliotta? Like, what a character.
He cracks me up, man.
Dude, he's so funny.
I promise you, he's one of a kind. Hardest working, hardest headed little fighting son of a gun you ever want to be around. He talks about fighting every day. So one of these days I'm gonna see it in action. But no, he's great. He and his I call her wife, Kim, that they are, might as well be wife, husband and wife. But
common law. Yeah.
She keeps him in check. But, dude, he does everything on these cars. Like, I've offered to send people over to Virginia where he keeps everything and to help him. He doesn't want help. And when I say he does everything, he takes the engines out. He freshens them. He dynos them. Makes new intakes. Makes new cylinder heads. He does absolutely everything in-house, which is pretty cool. He's got it kind of figured out. He makes big smoke. But these other guys out here make good power too. But Frank has a lot of runs in them with a lot of different drivers. And I'm very happy to have him on our side.
Do you think that
I just went to eat with him one time. I think we were probably down in Bradenton. And
probably had 1 or 2 glasses of wine, probably.
We probably had way more than that. But hell, I learned a lot just sitting there listening to him, that I didn't know about Mountain Motor Pro Stock. I thought he is, and that's why you need to qualify high so you can pick your lane, and just shit I never thought about.
Well, I feel like he's great at this, but he's probably going to be good whenever you put him in. If you put him in a alcohol funny car, he'd get it figured out to make it good. But he's kind of secretive, kind of back like in the old KB days. He doesn't want people looking at stuff. He doesn't want them staring at the intake manifold or asking a lot of questions. But very nice guy. Speaking of Vincent Nobile. He and John are building one of these cars, and they're actually getting one of our engines. So they built a new car, and it will be at Bristol with one of our engines. So kind of a not a team deal, but we're all going to use Frank's engines, which is good. I can't ask for anything better, like I said. But I hear maybe Victor Canazzi's interested in maybe building a car and putting like Jeff Strickland in one. And
really,
so I can see this class really growing. It's pretty awesome, and they're like monsters. I mean, they just don't go straight down the track. You have to drive, which is kind of fun.
I like that. To me, Mountain Motor Pro Stock, like I remember growing up with my dad, it was always like 500-inch racing. That was kind of the goal, but it was kind of out of reach for like the average guy. And
Sure.
I will say that I think it's more manageable today because you can go rent a car, or you can go lease an engine or whatever and be competitive. I mean, it used to be not so easy. I mean, it not that it's easy now, but I mean, my gosh, I remember talking at one point in time, it was like $90,000 a weekend to rent a motor.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
In NHRA Pro Stock.
Yeah.
And that is not for the faint of heart. I mean, you've got to be pretty strong to go do that. And I feel like the Mountain Motor thing has part of its big selling point is that it hasn't completely gotten out of control. And I will say, I'm just curious your thoughts on this. Like, I think there were some people kind of worried about a JHG team or an Elite Motorsports.
That's what I was wondering.
Mountain Motor Pro Stock. Like, is this gonna? But it feels like it's kind of been the necessary. Like, we needed something to jumpstart the next phase of Mountain Motor Pro Stock.
Right.
And when you get a big team showing interest, I mean, it's clearly worked. I mean, if you've got Victor Cagnazzi perhaps putting a car together, you got Vincent and John Nobile putting a car together. I mean, I guess the proof's in the pudding, right?
Star factor a little bit, when you get some guys that I mean, it's no joke that you guys have a big name in the sport, and then when you're down there, it shows that we're in a class that other people want to be in. Basically,
it will definitely grow. There's some sponsorship talk of people wanting to come, which is great for the sport all the way around. But it's I see a lot of people interested. I think KB's or Latinos helping maybe somebody. He told me he's going to bring a couple of these out, so it could develop. We would love to see it to be over 16 cars, and we'll have a 16-car field. You know what I mean? So it's going to be good. Again, don't want to flood the market with 22 events. I think maybe if we grow into a 10 race, like a Pro Mod deal, that's more than enough. Because like a lot of these guys told me, like, so we're racing for a championship, and some of them are talking about if, let's say, a couple of us are running away with it, why would they go to Vegas? Why would they spend the money if they don't have a chance? So my thought is, hey, let's raise some money up and let's make him race for a big paycheck out in Vegas just to win the race.
Yeah, man.
It's really simple. You all know you've been affiliated with a lot of races. You know how to put a race on. What brings the people to a race? They don't want to lose money, but let's give them a cool trophy and something to shoot for with a check.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is one of the Pro Mod series struggled with that, right? Like, you'd get 2 or 3 guys in the hunt for the championship, and now we've got to tow all the way to Vegas. And most of us are out on the East Coast or in the Midwest somewhere, and that becomes a tough one. Vegas has been special in that it's a destination race. Like, everybody is excited about going to Vegas. Like, because it's beyond the racetrack, right? Like, there's tons of stuff to do. There's all this excitement and energy. It's a great place to go race. But I think you're right. Like, if you dangle some big carrot out there at the end of the season that, you've got to, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that, but I think that that's a solid play.
You have to make it worth their while, because a lot of these mountain motor guys are old school guys. They've been around a lot longer than me, even in 500-inch stuff. So they're pretty set in their ways, and it has to make sense, which we know how to do that pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, it's not all about the money, but if you can throw that up at the top, it sure does. Like I said, it's that aspirational thing. Like, if we go out there and win this damn thing, it'll pay for our season or whatever, or pay for our gas money for the last 4 races. And that's right. I think that's an important thing.
I'm glad to hear that everybody treated you good coming in, because I kind of wondered, with I've had coming in there, got these beautiful cars, and and a big team behind you, and
But if you look, I mean, we made very good runs. A lot of the other cars ran close to speed as Elijah ran very good. He ran good at a PDRA race. He went 4 flat. I mean, that's getting it. I don't care what the area is, where you're at. But PDRA does a hell of a job giving you a very good track. You run later in the day. But it's we can get more into PDRA stuff whenever you want, but they treated us great. Tyler actually let me used their track a few times to help Randy Lynn in coaching and actually getting her license completed. So the Franklin family is great. I love them. Their daughters love bracket racing. I mean, they're racers, and that's what's cool. But they give a lot to that sport, and they should be very appreciated for that.
I agree, because it to be honest, like, just here in the name of being like transparent, I was concerned, because it's like, okay, PDRA's the PDRA Extreme Pro Stock class is like finally kind of got a foundation built, and now we've got this new option. And what's that gonna do? I'm curious. Like you said, Tyler and the Franklins, what was your 8th mile experience like? Like, I know you're a largely a quarter mile guy. Yeah. But what was your take of the PDRA Mid-Atlantic Nationals and what they have going? Because I really feel that deal, I think it's like the best kept secret in drag racing. I mean, if you watch that show they had out there, I mean, that you can't ask for better drag racing.
Yeah. First of all, if you've not been to one and seen not just the Extreme Pro Stock class, but, dude, these dudes are popping off 350s like they're nothing. And dudettes, I mean, Melanie's fast. I mean, Spencer won a race. I mean, these 350s, and then the little tire car is going 370s, 380s. I mean, that's really crazy, and a big base of racers that could go race anywhere. You know what I mean? They'd be competitive in anything they want to run in.
With nice stuff. I mean, like, all those cars are nice. All the rigs are nice. I mean, it's something else.
Well, I'm big for the little guy, local bracket racer. They allow them to show up, and that shows a lot. NHRA will allow local guys come in too, but you still have to go to so many points meets and different deal. But I think they try hard, and they do very well with getting the racer to the track. I don't know how much they have to advertise on to get fans, but if they keep doing what they're doing, I promise you fans will show up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just like staying the course. And I mean, they've done it 10 years in, right? But like, it takes time and people. And I think word's getting out. You make a great point. I would argue that any of those PDRA guys could be successful wherever they chose to race. Like, they have a really, really good group of racers. And I actually, when I was out in Virginia a couple of weeks ago, I was telling them on the starting line, I almost feel sometimes like we're a little desensitized. Like, we see so much of those 350 runs that we fail to realize like how big of a deal that is. Like, the fact that there are 20 cars on the property that can run those numbers is I mean, it's bonkers. It's absolutely insane. I'm watching like the semifinals at 359, 357, 359, and I'm like, this is insane what is happening out here. Like, and the fact that, I mean, we should have people crawling all over this joint, because you can't ask for better, closer racing. We got a comment here from Billy Carroll, one of our dear friends from Comp Cams. He's asking, like, you've driven everything, been competitive in everything you've ever done. You said as soon as you're off the pod today, you're going to jump on a plane and go run a 50,000 to win bracket race. Like, what for you? We were talking about the challenge of driving a Mountain Motor Pro stock car, but I mean, all the bracket racing you've done, winning the million, racing the stripe. What is the most exciting or fun style of racing for you?
You know, people's asked me that a million times, and a lot of people will put me in very good cars, whether it's a stocker, pro stock car, or whatever. But dude, it's really, I had a long time ago, I won a golf cart bracket race. Okay. So anything that can be competitive, that you get to race against the best. Anytime you can turn a light on, that's what puts a fire under me. You pull up next to Greg or Jason or Eric or one of those, and you turn the wind light on, like, it's almost better to maybe turn a wind light on and get outran. You know what I mean? As a fire inside of you as a driver. And then you get older and you go in a dry spell to where you can't turn a wind light on if you're perfect. You know what I mean? So then you start asking yourself, am I too old? And that's where I'm at with this bracket stuff lately, because I've had some very good races on the wrong side. So boom, I got 3 bracket races to go to this weekend. TB Promotions putting a big deal on in Bowling Green. In fact, we raced for $100,000.
Oh, frick, we lost him. Someone tried to call you. Bounce out and come back, Bo. Bounce out and come back. Because I want to talk to him about this bracket racing thing, JT, because that is, you talk about unsung heroes or best kept secrets in drag racing. Like, these big money bracket races are popping up left and freaking right out here. And I wonder how much, like, I've wondered how much that is impacting our sport. Like, I see some of the car counts that at these big national events, and obviously it's very strong, and NHRA is, I think, strong right now in terms of participation. But I am curious, like how many of those races can there be? Like there's a 50,000 to win bracket race every time I turn around. Bo, I was just asking, like, is there one of the things that we see, you talked about oversaturating, right? Like how many of these damn big money bracket races can we, it seems like you can run for $50,000 every weekend, multiple times a weekend.
It's scary, but they're starting to shrink a little bit because, when I won the million, Randy and I went out there to Vegas. We ran everything. Luckily, I won. Some of those races, you have to get one car in a final to pay your tab. You can have a $20,000 tab if you suck and do buybacks, and you know what I mean? So, Again, how many can you do? So maybe you'll get a day, and I know guys that sponsor some of these young guys for a percentage, you know what I mean? Or put them in, and the driver gets 30% if they win. So I help a few guys to do that, but there's only so many. You're right. That'd be about like our pro race. We have the funds to go do it, but how many times are you going to pay an entry fee like that? You know what I mean? It has to make sense. But there are bracket races saturated, but if you stay at the local level and you pay around that 10 grand range and let somebody spend 400 or 500, it's a no-brainer. You can do it every weekend.
No joke. What do you make of one thing that I've always loved about you and Randy Lynn is like staying true to your sportsman roots, because it seems like a lot of times you go to the pros and you move up in the ranks and you kind of put all that stuff behind you, and going back to that would be seen as a step down or a step in the wrong direction. But you guys have never, ever, every time I turn around, you're loading up, taking the dragster somewhere, or taking her stalker somewhere. Right. Like how it's clearly about the people. Like you love that community of people. You run around with a bunch of them are on your crew. How much is that group of people what's so important to you? Like at our pro race, I got to give you a lot of kudos because you helped us round up all of our sportsman racers. Like we wouldn't have had super stock and stock hardly if it wasn't for you and Royce Lee Freeman and guys ringing phones. And it was cool to see you kind of be the what do you say, the circus master of that particular group.
You're even putting fires out when signs getting stole.
Oh yeah. Well, what's real easy about this is these are old school guys. Listen, I started out bracket racing with a trade-in from our dealership over at Ohio Valley. Snuck it over, somehow squeezed through and won my first race I ever went to. Not even knowing, I knew how to do burnouts because I did that shit on the street all the time, but. When I do a burnout, I don't know if you heard the story. I pull up and I got my window down and the radio on, and the dude, the starter, comes running over. It's my first run. Comes knocking on there and says, "Hey, dude, you can have your radio on, but you got to have your window up." So that was my first experience. But no, we started that way, and I'm one of the few. Now I've had the means. I've been very fortunate to be able to race whatever class I wanted to jump into, but I started at the bottom and I worked my way up. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with somebody who can afford to jump right into one, but you can see the guys, Jed Coughlin, he and I, we all the Coughlin brothers, we all grew up racing stock, super gas, whatever, bracket racing. But there's a few that get to hop right in and do well, but those few also get bored and you see them leave quick. And it's a tough game, but a lot of times when you have a lot of money, you get bored easy. So, but these other guys, there's a lot of people that's very successful in the bracket world and also in the stock, super stock guys. I put a race on a few years back, Randy and I did with Jason Lyman and Conley, and it was great. After your race, every one of those guys and gals are begging, "Hey, can we come back next year? Hey, are you going to have a series of these? Or where can we buy in?" And, I planned on running the super stock part of it with my Mustang. And then we had some issues and we needed help to make it go smooth for the guys and gals. So as I turned my tech card in, I brought Matt Dadass with us, which is a bracket racer, but he has an NHRA license. He's a bottom bowl guy. I was turning my tech card in and I scratched my name up and I put Matt's name. And I call him up and say, "Hey, dude, they got super stock in the lanes. I'm making an executive decision. Put my stuff on. You're going." And of course, boom. And he was very beatable a few rounds, 70 and 80 on the tree. But we ended up squeezing through and winning the race. Well, that race to him was so funny. This man's won $1 million race. He's won everything he can win. He's won over $500,000 in a year just at local bracket races. But he's telling me pulling into the finals of that one race in super stock with the crowd and the people all around him. He said, I've never been so nervous in my life, and it was for 10 grand. You know what I mean? So that's a whole different feeling. And I get a lot of the bracket guys that would pay and love to come race at the NHRA level, at any level. You know what I mean? They're used to the bracket racing stuff, but it's tough. And with the pro race, we had the coolest trophies. It was an atmosphere like I've never seen before with people. But you know as well as I do, you cannot compete with a Wally.
It's hard.
People will give up $100,000 bracket race to go race a division race for a small Wally. Yeah. But the new super stock guys, after the few races we've helped them put on, are starting to think different. So
I mean, I've never. It's a tough one for me because I've had so many of those conversations I remember taking my licks after the World Series the first 3 years in Denver. It would literally drive me insane. Like, we did those races, Bo, $100,000 to win, no entry fee, free testing, like everything we could throw at them. And the last year we did it in Denver, we had 11 pro mods show up. And I thought, fuck, there's nothing more I can do. Like, because 2 weeks later, there was 30 of them parked in the gravel at Indianapolis for the U.S. Nationals. Yep. And it was all racing for paying big money to race, being just a part of the show, not the show. But like you said, it was the Wally that drove that. They want to go run for a Wally. And I would never say anything disparaging about it, but I do think the winds of change are blowing.
They are definitely. And NHRA recognizes that because they saw our two super stock races. And I had a meeting with Evan Jonak, and he's like, hey, dude, what can we do? I mean, how can we get a bigger race? And for one, after I won the million, a couple of them come to me and they said, hey, we want $1 million race. We want to run for $1 million at a national event. And I told them it won't happen. They said, why won't I? said, for one, I mean, it's a lot of rounds. What are you going to do when Johnny Ezel pulls up in his dragster and hops out in blue jeans and cowboy boots? You know what I mean? That's the way he races. There's people that race in Crocs. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame. Plus, and I have all the respect for John.
They should never win anything
for the pros, but these guys could care less about professional racing. You know what I mean? They're there to win the money, and that's what they're there for. So, same being said, I told them, let's raise our entry fees like in Indy. Let's go to stock and super stock and $500 or $1,000 to enter. But let's pay these guys $25 or $30 grand to win. If you do the math, you're going to still come out way ahead being NHRA. But they're a little afraid that they won't show up. And I told Evan, if you allow me to do it, I'll sell out Indy in a day at $1,000 buy-in if you pay them $50 grand to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for sure.
It's really, they're going to come anyway. And the guys that do come and travel have the means to pay an extra $800 entry fee.
I think the hardest thing that they have is the thing that I continue to come back to that NHRA battles is there's just so many cars there. Like it's hard. I mean, can you imagine how much better, like, say you're having people over to your house, Bo, are they going to have a better experience if there's 50 people coming over for your Christmas party or if there's 500?
Right.
Like, it's cool to have 500 people at your Christmas party, but it's really hard to ensure that all those 500 people had a great time, because the fact of the matter is one guy is going to win. Sure, there might be a split and everybody may get a taste, but more than likely you're going to have one dude leave with a big check. Everybody else is going to go home with some scraps. So you've got to find ways to take it beyond that. And a lot of it is just like making sure they know you care, making sure that they know and truly believe that you appreciate them. And appreciate that it's no secret. It's a ritual of mine. First round of eliminations, I'm walking the lanes, making sure everybody that qualified knows that I personally spoke to them and I personally appreciate. I don't give a shit what anybody else, no one else may care, but they're going to know that I care, because, and the other thing is, it's not lip service. It's not bullshit. Like, I've spent my entire life at the drag strip, and I know the sacrifices, and even the people that are well-to-do are giving up another opportunity to go do this. They could go do something else. They could go bass fishing. They could rent a helicopter and fly in circles. They can do whatever they want. So the fact that they chose to come support me and come be a part of what we're doing, come to our party, that shit means a lot to me, bro. You know what I mean?
They need to know if they're not there, you lose your ass. And you're not there just to make them. You're not there to make money. people that know you love it for the sport. You're there for drag racing. You know what I mean? Plus, you want to give them the best opportunity to have the best event that you can put on, and treating them right. Like one difference, and I told NHRA with a couple of times a top sportsman car or something at the pro race had an oil down. Well, we had to turn around Superstock twice, right? But the biggest difference in the world when NHRA asked me, well, how's this any different than anything else that we do? I said, here's what's different is we allowed them to have their run. No matter if it was later, before you shut everything down, sorry, Superstock, come on back up. You're going to get your qualifying run. Would never happen because of the scheduling. And I understand they have a lot of cars, but a simple fix for NHRA is stop paying for live TV. Nobody cares about live TV. Do your show, make.
Oh shit! We got another call.
I thought we had that lined out with him. Oh,
I thought we did too. I thought the focus thing would work. I agree with what he's saying. I believe live sports works. I don't know that the way they're doing it is going to work. Like, I think it's got to go beyond. I mean, I watched the race this past weekend. I was out in Charlotte just one day, and I saw Rodney in here from the Top End Club. I was in a meeting until late on Saturday night, and I wasn't able to come to the Saturday night party, and I hate that I missed it. Shout out to all those guys. But it is finding a way to make that show work. Like watching the races on Sunday from my house, I'm going, we've got to find a way to tell stories here. Like the story's really not what happens on the racetrack. Like it's almost secondary to pit drama. I mean, dude, you don't got to look any further than Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings. JT, how many times have we talked about this? Like those are clearly racing shows, but the racing is really racing. Secondary to the characters. Right. And I mean, you don't got to look much further than. But
you're setting the stage. You're making a plot, for that final run. Like you followed all this stuff in the pits. You followed everything. Going back and forth, and then at the very end, you get that run where it's mano a mano, and that's what makes for good TV, right?
100%. Bo, you were just talking about live TV.
Yes,
like it's tough, like because I can make a big case for the power of live television. Sure. I don't know that the way they're currently doing it is doing for them what they think it is, right? Because right. I understand like that scheduling and the way they get them. I mean. And there's nothing they can do about it, right? I mean, right. they're paying for this live television, and they've got to make the most of that investment, no doubt about it. But you're right; it does give all your wiggle room's gone.
Sure. But they're not live, I mean, besides
they're not all live. How many of them are actually live? Not that many.
Not many, but and I get it. It's cool, but I think they're at the mercy of whatever contract. I don't know. I know nothing about it. But whatever they bought already or whatever. But I would definitely not pay a penny more to be live to when I can make my show better. And let's face it, there's most people that actually watch our deal, watch NHRA TV live, and they're not watching TV. Okay, our sponsors watch TV. Our sponsors want TV numbers, but it's a different world we live in now. So I wouldn't pay a penny extra to be live on TV, and I'd rather have an awesome show.
I agree. I mean, and if everything in the world's headed that direction, right? I mean, sure. We talked about this the last few weeks, but I'm excited to see what Netflix does because Netflix is making a big push into live sports. They got this big Mike Tyson, Jake Paul boxing match coming up this summer. That's going to be like the first major sporting event that happens on Netflix. And I think that that's going to be like the first domino to fall where it's like, I mean, we saw the NFL do it, right? JT, you know the ins of that better than I do. But they paid crazy money, Amazon being to have those Thursday night games broadcast on Prime. Like we're headed that direction.
And then Peacock did it, in the playoffs.
Everybody watches Full Swing. They watch the Formula One. They watch. The quarterback. I mean, can you imagine the opportunity that we have in drag racing with the characters and the teams that we have? It would. Exactly. I mean, there's no bigger stage. There can't get that many people. You know what I mean? Follow Richard Freeman around in Elite for a day. I mean,
we have.
Yeah. Guarantee it. And there's nothing but there's so many of those. And it's if you want TV time and that Netflix and that stuff, that's the way to do it.
I agree. I mean, we've got to it's about the characters. And like, that's why this show, I mean, one of the things that and I have a lot of conversations about this is that I feel like we are still training people to watch drag racing programming or watch drag racing content that's not cars doing backflips or crashing. I mean, for 70 years, all the content, right? All the content that existed in drag racing, all the stuff that got lots of views or whatever were crashes, wrecks, all that stuff, engine explosions.
Right.
And it's like that maybe helped get us here. But the way to get to the next level is to develop star power. I mean, we need to be telling these stories. And to your point, I mean, I look at Cletus McFarland and what he's doing with those roundy round races. I mean, they're racing beat to shit Crown Vics.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's watching it because it's the people that they have driving those Crown Vics.
How many hits did you get when he raced Clay?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that video got. Oh, dude, I actually have that in front of me.
But in all honesty, look how much that helped Clay, and he's one of our drag racers, right? But it's from the following of Cletus. I mean, but again, a character that got it. You know what I mean? And I don't think it'd ever be too late with what we have, and as big as our world is. But somebody needs to get on the ball with it.
I agree. Like, where's this at? Fastest Nitro. Where's it at? Epic Showdown, McPhil. Yeah, like in less than 24 hours, that video had over 150,000 views.
Yeah,
and it's like that just goes to show you
Clay gets it. You know, like
Clay gets it.
Just doing that, and then you know, he's been to several events. He's been to a couple no prep races. Hangs out with Jeff Lutz a lot at those deals. You know, he gets it because he can bring those fans over. You know, they've obviously like racing, or they wouldn't be there. They followed the drama. Now they like the racing, and then they meet Clay, who's the nicest guy in the world.
Right.
Then you can bring him over into NHRA. You know, with him.
My take has always been that fast cars, big burnouts, header flames, shiny paint jobs, all that shit will bring people out. But what will bring them back is developing a connection with a driver.
Absolutely.
They've got to become a fan. Like every time I ask, like if I ask my wife, for those that don't know, my wife, Alicia, she's no sort of hardcore drag racer or whatever. She was part of a car family, and they were always into cars, but she's never been like into drag racing. And once I started dragging her around to all the races, if I asked her if she wanted to go, she always would ask me like well, I mean, you're a good example. We've been vacationing together. She's like, well, is Bo or Randy Lynn racing? I'm like, well, no, they're not running this event. Well, I don't really care to go. You know what I mean? Because, she loves Jason Scruggs. Is Jason Scruggs racing? You know, and it's like, well, no, Jason doesn't run this event. Well, I don't really care. She wants to go. She'll go watch, but she wants to go support someone that she's made a connection with.
As a spectator, I think that's what it is.
It's
more going to see people you like. You know, like when I met Bo, I met Saudi. I think it was in Saudi Arabia when I like yeah, you were playing pranks on everybody and shit. And I was like, oh yeah. This is my guy.
They did stake me with Tony and Brian. So yeah.
Let's tell that story. Tell this story because Tony Schumacher is a good sport.
Tony Schumacher's my buddy.
So this is a funny story. So we're 8,000 miles from home.
Yeah, funny
in Saudi Arabia.
So morning one, we wake up and we all meet for breakfast, and it's Brian, Tony, and then Tony Pendergast and Tony Schumacher. Well, Tony, we're all going to do something that day, and Tony Schumacher looks at me and he grabs one of like a knife off the table, like a normal knife, and I kind of look at him and he goes, "Hey man, I'm going to carry this with us in case anything goes down, right?" And I'm like joking, right? And I look over at Brian, he's smiling at me, and the best comment he makes is, "Hey, we know these women wear all black over their face, you can't see them, but you need to look down, look at their shoes." I'm like, "Well, I got to look at their shoes for? Because if they have big feet, they're men. They have bombs on them." So I've got you, right? And jokingly or not, but Tony is dude, when they call him the Sarge, the man's the Sarge. Down deep in his heart, he believes it, and he loves our country, I know. But that was a great experience. I mean, everybody should be around all of these type people, all the racers. I mean, if you have a chance to go meet Tony Stewart, same way. He and I, since last couple of years, had talked a lot and went out, and of course we both know Jason Johnson very well, but it's these guys are real, but they're all characters, and that's what people need to. Don't be scared to go up and talk to them, because I promise you they want to cut up with you, they want to joke with you. They're normal people. It's funny.
He kept telling him that Richard Freeman wanted to talk to Tony, and then so then Tony would go over and you go, "What do you want, Richard?" And Richard's like, what? I don't want to fucking talk. What?
Yeah.
And we go back and go, no, he really does want to talk to you. You need to go over and ask him. Like, he really wants. And you did it like 4 or 5 times. It was hilarious. And Richard was getting irritated.
Tony's trying to get your credit card business at one time. So I don't know what that was about, but hey, who does your credit card business?
Oh my gosh, man. That was I think about, do you ever think about how drag racing, we talk all the time. We seem to spend a tremendous amount of time talking about how expensive it is, how hard it is. And those things are true, no doubt. But how blessed are we, like, to have had all these experiences and done all these things on the back of drag racing? Like, all these people, like every cool person I know, for the most part, is someone that I've met through the sport of drag racing. I pinch myself. Whenever I went to ZMAX this past weekend, I can't remember who I was on the phone with when I was rolling into the track, but I roll in and I was just kind of floored. Like, I've been there 100 times, but it still kind of hits you like a ton of bricks that they built a facility like that for drag racing. I mean, like, I'm like you, I grew up going to the little local honky tonk drag strip, and you think sometimes it's easy to go like, this is as big as it is and nobody cares about this shit. And then you fly across the country or across the world and realize, like, this is a big sport. A lot of people care about, I mean, NHRA used to always brag about 40,000 or 80,000 members. That's a lot of people that are doing the same thing. And that's just one sliver. I mean, just one sliver of all the people that are going drag racing.
Don't for once think there's not fans everywhere that doesn't keep up with sportsman racers and all that. I mean, I was successful in pro stock and all, but like Tony invited us to go to Eldora. I've never been to one of those races. Some 105, I don't know what it was, big money dirt late model deal.
Yeah, I want to go to one of those.
I show up there and Tony's in the center on a tower. We jump up there with him. Dude, he's running the whole race with a walkie-talkie. And like turn one, I'm standing up there, I look over and there's Tony gone. There's a wreck. He's out there on the track cleaning up stuff, making sure everybody's good. And he runs the whole deal. I mean, he gets it. But what was good about that is I think the race started like at 7 at night. But like 10 o'clock in the morning, the stands are full because it's first come, first serve. And people don't get up. They're sitting in the grass on towels just for this one race. And I'm sure it's televised and all, but just know how to treat your customer. First of all, you have to know your customer. And they're good at that. I mean, it's good, but NHRA is getting better. I can tell you, I know numbers from NHRA by the amount of T-shirts we sell at every event. That tells me if we were up, they had to be up. You know what I mean? It's really simple because, we do put out new shirts every year for different drivers, but the other stuff, I mean, they've already got a Bo Butner shirt or an Erica shirt, but you get new people coming in, they want all of them. You know what I mean? So I see the numbers, and like Charlotte this year was the biggest Charlotte we've ever had. A lot of people don't like the 4-wide, but for some reason, I mean, look how big that place is. You're never going to fill it. There's nothing in the world you can make.
But it was a zoo. I was impressed. I mean, Saturday,
that was probably the best.
We always, that track's a hard one to judge, to your point, because of how big the place is. Like, you would have to have Elvis and Tupac there, I think, to really fill it. But Mike and I were driving through the pits. And shout out to Rick Belden, our director of photography here at Drag Illustrated. We were burning around. They're doing photo shoots and shooting some covers for upcoming issues of the magazine and doing some feature photography. But that place you have to judge almost by the traffic in the pits. And you could hardly move in that joint.
Yep. It was good.
It was good. What do you make of the 4-wide thing? I hate it. I'm just curious. Like,
I enjoy it as a driver just because you can win a runner-up to make it to the final. You know what I mean? Sure. So that helps you. And also, so many people are screwed up. I mean, it doesn't stage normal. If you're in the middle, you don't know where to look. And whatever I can do to get an advantage to turn a wind light on, I think it's cool. But a lot of people say it's not real drag racing. But, again, maybe they should just have a winner. You know what I mean? But they also go a lot quicker. I mean, it's like half the time when they start top fuel, we got an hour. No, you don't. You got like 30 minutes. And they're calling you up. So I don't know. I'm glad to have a couple of them, but I'd have to assume it's more of a Bruton Smith kind of deal from a Dream or something, or every one of his tracks you look at, they're either 4-wide or it can be 4-wide. So
it's true. I mean, I think it works as like a once or twice a year spectacle. Yes. I don't know that it's anything that could be like further developed beyond that. Like, I think that that's kind of what it is. We're going to run a couple of these events 4-wide at facilities that we have. But like, I love the mano-a-mano competition. Like, it's a gunfight. Drag race. We don't make a big enough deal out of.
I think you're right. I mean, I do like it, but I think it's only for like maybe 1 or 2.
I think they should have one. Make it big. Make it huge.
Yeah, like it's spectacular. So let you know. Yeah,
you know what I mean, do pro mod against pro stock with a gap. I mean, do something where it's just off the wall. But that you want to pack the place, do stuff like that.
I mean, and sometimes, I mean, the biggest thing I go back, we've been doing 4-wide for like a decade and a half. So it's not necessarily new, but I do appreciate the effort to try, to be doing something and staying committed to it, because they could have easily seen that, like, hey, the 4-wide in Charlotte doesn't perform as well as the 2-wide in September or whatever. And I actually think that's backwards, but they could have punted on it, but they've stayed the course, and I think it's important. It makes a lot of sense in Vegas, right? Like, you expect everything in Vegas to be big and crazy.
Other than Pomona, I don't see a reason to have 2 races at any track. I mean, I think you should start and finish Pomona if you want to keep it old school. But to go visit 2 tracks, I mean, it's tough for an average family to go. I mean, it's a lot of money, and you got to park, and you got to feed your kids. So, plus Charlotte's raced out. I mean, they have races everywhere all the time, and
right.
But again, I was very, very impressed with this 4-wide. There were a lot of fans, a lot of people. It's pretty neat.
I always said they just need to take the 4 lanes and just split them up, and then when one set of lanes gets oiled down or something, you work on that and keep running the show. And then
how hard would it be to get an ET for pro stock bike to put in 2 lanes, and then an ET to go off of a pro stock car? Let them race against each other. I mean,
that'd be cool.
It's been done. I mean, it's been done with Top Fuel and Funny Car with a spot, but I think that would be, most people would probably hate it because it's not the mono deal, but some people, your newer crowd, you might get them all.
Well, I mean, and if, like I said, if you're going to do it because I think one of the things that we got the most positive feedback on, and we were blessed to get a lot of positive feedback from the Pro Superstar Shootout, but that Top Fuel versus Funny Car thing, people really like it. It's just
cool shit. I mean, but another thing's big is your chip draw. So not knowing who you're going to have, I mean, is for a driver's point, I mean, it can work out good if you're down low qualifying, you know what I mean? And I might get somebody I can run with, but that's I think showing that to the fans more, they would enjoy that more. I mean, I don't know, it's different, but just mix it up at certain races.
And getting like that was, I was talking to Spencer Hyde at the PDRA race in Virginia a few weeks ago, and he goes, "Man, I felt like we were fully capable of winning that deal again. Like, we had a car that could win. We were running good." And he goes, but it was interesting to your point, Bo. He goes, "We had a bad draw." He goes, "I drew Jim Halsey in the second round, and like that." But that's the type of thing that you need to have happen. Absolutely. Where one of the favorites goes out early because of things like that. So I love that type of stuff. Real quick, because this was a huge conversation over the weekend, and you being a Sportsman racer, I thought it was absolutely badass to see Ricky Smith show up and run comp for a multitude of reasons. Like, one that people need to know is that this is, in this day and age, getting a sponsor has perhaps, like, I think there's more money floating around than there has been in a while, but getting it is different than it used to be. Like,
it's going to fewer people. You know what I mean? There's fewer of those people to. Now, JHG, he sponsors across the board. He likes the classes he likes. He's going to help, and that's great. But there's only so many Jason Johnsons as true freaking drag fans, dude. I mean, he could run F1 if he wanted to. He could run NASCAR. He doesn't care for that. He likes the way one-on-one, get to be with the drivers, the crew. He's a drag. I mean, he's a car guy. All car guys love drag racing. I don't care what you say.
I agree, and that's the shit that drives me crazy.
Like a lot of them don't even know we have stock and super stock cars there. They're not even told this. A lot of them come up to Randy Lynn's Firebird like, "When did you all run? I didn't even know you all even ran here." And I've told NHRA, dude, there's car people that would love to come watch these cars run. Get them here early. And most car guys like to get up early too. I mean, it all goes hand to hand.
I mean, I think like the Ricky thing, I thought it was cool because he told me, he goes, "Wes, I can't do a Ricky. I wish Mike was on here because he can do a pretty good Ricky Smith." But
Tyler Crossman can nail it.
Yeah, he told me, he goes, "Wes, I'm going to go out there and run that 4-wide deal just because that's where my sponsors are at." And that's the reason I brought it up, is because that's a guy who knows who butters his bread.
Yep.
And even though this isn't the path of least resistance for me, I'm going to have to do some things different. I'm going to have to go, run a sportsman category. He knew that it's important to go have a strong showing and be there at that race because his sponsor are going to be able to bring out a bunch of guests. And I just think people need to remember that, because it's not, sometimes you got to bend. Like you've got to do what works for them, not be totally focused on what works for you. Because I think an argument could have been made like, hey man, don't spend the money and the resources and the time going and running a race so you're not competing for a championship, or it's not going to serve your overarching goals of winning a pro mod championship or whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
But he knew that he needed to go out there and take care of his sponsors, and he made history in the process. Like,
did a heck of a job. And I talked to him a couple times, like, what are you doing, dude? And he was explaining to me, and then he'd go out there and go real fast and just start smiling and laughing like, man, I'm shutting off at 1,000 foot. And I said, Ricky, you shutting off 1,000 foot is like me shutting off 10 inches before the freaking finish line. You know what I mean? You're not killing nothing. So, and I gave it to him to sit there and have to sit there and wait on all the slow cars leave and then chase them down, try to drive any type of finish line at that speed. That was pretty impressive. Of course, he probably nicked the class a little bit. I'm not ever saying you kill a class, but he did what he had to do to win, and that's Ricky.
I thought it was spectacular, man. I mean, it's just
cool.
The dude. You've driven for Ricky.
Yeah, I actually drove that car or a car like that a couple times. Now, when I got in trouble with the whole Trump deal at Indy, that's one where Jason and I kind of met up and had Trump on the side of the car, and I make that first qualifying run, and that's the first time I drove this car. And I think a couple of the NHRA folks met me at the scales. Hey man, we're getting calls from California. I said, listen, stop. I'm not taking it off.
Cut the line to California.
Get me out of here. I've got some other pro drivers that are walking with me. I don't vote for Bo or Trump because Bo has it on his car. This is what I believe in. I don't care what anybody else does. So at that race that Jason Johnson, that's how we hooked up. But I think I gave every Sportsman racer stickers, shirts, and I'll go ahead and admit it was me that had Racers for Trump flying over with banners and going back and forth. And then we had it on the car. Well, dude, how lucky were we that Eric Trump showed up for a day? You know what I mean?
Oh,
and dude, it was like all perfect. And I get it. NHRA has to be politically correct. And I told them that if I would get in trouble for selling Trump shirts, like I got fined a couple of times off my trailer and all that. And I told them, they said, well, if you do that, we got to have Biden's or Hillary shirt, whatever. I said, no problem. I'll make one because nobody's going to buy it. We'll hang it right there for sale. No problem. So, but
don't you think that's a little bit about not knowing your audience, though?
Know your customer. Really simple. Really,
yeah.
And it was great, and that got Jason kind of involved and having fun. They were involved before with Kenny Bernstein when the Copart sponsored, right? And let's face it, Top Fuel is a different animal. It's hardcore, serious, a little different guys back in that day. You know what I mean? And they were pretty serious. But a couple of things were mentioned about how like Jason wanted to meet a couple of the driver's friends, and he's like, "Don't go around my friends." You know what I mean? So again, don't treat people. I mean, I don't get why anybody ever thinks they're up here. I don't care what class you're in or what you do. We all put our pants on the same. We all get up. We all love drag racing. So we're lucky again.
It is different though. Like we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I think, Wes. Like when we had the racers party at the pro race. It's like pulling teeth to get those guys to go have a good time, and go interact with everybody. But then you have it at the World Series of Pro Mod. Man, it's big.
You got to shut the party down. Yeah, it's like, hey, we're gonna have to pull this back because we're gonna get in trouble.
You're crazy the difference. Same way. I mean, I think you put on a big or drag illustrated party, a PDRA.
Yeah.
It's crazy out here. I haven't been because I probably don't need to go. I quit drinking, but I hear nothing but good things.
No, I mean, for me, that's really what it all goes back to is like making sure, because all of this stuff, like we've talked about plenty, is that it's expensive. It's hard. If you can't have fun doing it, screw it. Like if we can't have some fun, we can't have a good time because we're not curing cancer out here. Like, right. Don't get me wrong. It's serious. It's dangerous. It's all those things. But for the most of us, this is our passion. This is our hobby. This is what we do to have fun. And let's make sure we don't lose sight of that. I mean, that's something that I feel I remember after a World Series in 2023, we had the World Series, and the next week was the Gator Nationals. And I stayed over and drove over to Gainesville just because I wanted to go show support and I wanted to show my face and be like, hey, just because we're putting on a race doesn't mean that we don't believe in what's going on over here too. And so I showed up, and I remember just the dynamic change, because like everybody at World Series was like having this big time and having fun, and everybody's, don't be wrong, the racing's very serious and everybody wants to win and it's very competitive, all those things. But we've also married in like this big family barbecue type of thing and this big party. And then you go to the first race of the NHRA season and it was like everybody's back on the grind, back on the grind, back doing the back on a job site. And it's like, I don't know how you marry those worlds, because it's tough. I mean,
well, it's tough because like I'm helped by Summit some, right? You take a big professional, big corporation, they do expect certain different things. They expect expect it to be professional. They expect to handle yourself correctly or keep shaved. I mean, Jason and I used to get in trouble all the time for not shaving, but that's the different deal, and it's. There's not that much more money involved because your race paid stupid money, right? But again, it's just having to watch, and I think it's just been that way so long. But you take somebody like Jason Johnson, he would rather come in, drink beer with a fan, see a veteran, talk to him, go hang out, go watch, go buy a T-shirt. I mean, there are different types of sponsors that you do have to treat differently. I'm very happy to have Summit, and they've been great to Rain Lynn for many years, and we'll continue to support them. But having Jason and Nikki and that whole crew with JHG really lets you take a deep breath, you know what I mean, and be yourself.
In most sports, you play better or you'll perform better when you are having fun.
Absolutely.
When you start grinding too much and thinking about the money and thinking about this and thinking about, you got too much on your plate, too much on your mind. But when you're having fun doing it and you're kicking ass and it's feeling good, I mean, it's just it's a wave that you ride for a long time. I say that all the time. And then if you win at the end of it, you've also had fun. And if you win some money at the end, it's a bonus.
Bonus, right? Yep.
I couldn't agree more. So looking forward at like the rest of the season and what you got going on with Mountain Motor, I mean, what's your take on where do you see, like, it's no secret, Jason Johnson. And for those that don't know, Jason Johnson is the owner of Johnson's Horse-Powered Garage, which is basically a high-end automotive collection and operation that exists in Nashville, Tennessee, in the greater Nashville, Tennessee area. And the difference he's making in the sport of drag racing can't really be overstated right now. But to your point, like, how do we get guys like that in here and keep them? Because that's the thing, is it's almost like I've seen it so many times where they come in and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they almost get spread too thin. And it's like, hey, I can't focus on all this. There's too much going on is that kind of what you're tasked with, and like making sure this stays fun and stays enjoyable for him?
Well, he and I, when we first came in together, both stated if we quit having fun, we're done. You know what I mean? We're not going to continue to do anything. Jason he's a man of his word. Jason likes to help people. He enjoys the racing. He enjoys having fun. He has his favorites. I mean, he of course, he's been great to us, great to the elite team, loves Matt Hagan and Tony and Leah. But I'm not seeing anybody like him. He just, he'll help you at your race. He's helped Bruno do a PDRA show. I mean, anything to do that helps that sport. I've never seen that much heart. And, we had a meeting with NHRA before about maybe when they needed a title sponsor of him maybe being that title sponsor. And then we asked some questions and saw some salaries, right? And the dude got his lips started quivering. He was talking about, hey, I get to come here and watch these cars and be a part of these. NASCAR can't do this. I love this sport. And his lip was quivering, right, to them. So when he found out some of the salaries, he's like, holy cow, dude. The CEO of Copart doesn't make what some of these guys made for a long time. You know what I mean? So he's very intelligent. He definitely knows cars, and he's getting to where he knows the drag racing, which is good. We got to keep not only Jason and Nikki and people. We need people like that involved, but he's a car guy. That's what they need to get. I mean, you're only going to get a corporate sponsor for so many years, and then they're going to either sell or go public or walk away, and it's over. But the main thing is having fun and keeping them. Listen, dude, when he's done, he's put a mark on the world that you can't ever take off.
No,
and speaking of which, Bristol's coming up. That's our next mountain motor race, right? So the Wednesday before Bristol, he has his open house that everybody's involved to at his shop. He's got a couple of shops kind of scattered all over, but we'll have both our mountain motor cars there. Erica and Aaron's car will be there. I think Tony and Matt Hagen's car will be there, and it's a good afternoon to see his collection. And you'll see some of them he has for sale, and you'll see his private collection. So it's really a fun time for anybody that wants to come. I don't know, did you all come before, either one of you?
No, I've been to his shop in Nashville, but I've not been to the new place. I've seen all the drawings and whatnot, but I've not been to the new shop.
Yeah, he's got a new shop and another new shop being built. He's got a manufacturing company to where he's going to do a lot of carbon fiber stuff. I mean, he's thinking ahead, like everybody makes C10 parts, right, for trucks. Well, he's going to do some Dodge stuff, carbon fiber stuff for Dodge, for the collector of those trucks. You know what I mean? So he's got a good passion of all things cars. And if you have a chance, you need to come to the open house thing, hang out. It's very cool.
We need to try to come to that, JT.
Yeah, I got some stuff I got to take them anyway. So
yeah, it's the Wednesday before Bristol.
I'm going to try to go. We should go. We should do the show
there
from the shop.
Dude, you seen the cigar bar, right?
Yep.
And well, over top there is the simulators and all that. Overlooks all the. I think he has Lamborghinis and some Ford GTs in that room now.
Dude, the funniest story.
Let's do it.
He's built two more buildings since you've been. So
when I went to his shop, this is the funniest thing. He's showing us around this huge property, right? And he's driving around like a golf cart, some crazy Ferrari, like some special edition. I don't know shit about that stuff. Some Ferrari, Scuderia, something. And he's like, just hop in. And I hop in. And I mean, he's driving this thing around on gravel, treating it like a daily driver. And I'm like, this is my kind of guy.
I've got one better than that. When I first went to the shop, we hop in a G-Wagon, G squared. That's some, I don't know, $500,000 special edition deal. And he's got like a river creek that runs through his house, right? Through his property.
Yeah.
It takes on off. We shoot right through that creek, hit some mountains and hills, and like it's nothing. But dude, he wants to have a good time. Why not? You know what I mean?
Me too.
It's fun, but you have got to come see everything that he's building. It's pretty cool.
We should pencil that in, JT.
Let's do it, and we won't tell Mike.
Yeah, we won't tell Mike. Nobody watching. Nobody say anything to Mike. Don't say
Mike
shit.
won't watch this show, so we'll just.
He wasn't on it, so he's not.
And then when we go live, like he had it from here, Bristol.
Yeah, we got it. We decided to come. Yeah, live from Nashville, man. That's actually it'd be a lot of fun, dude. So real kind of closing notes here, Bo, before we let you go. I guess you have, what do you see for like you and Randy Lynn? I mean, I know that you were kind of like, you retired at one point from the 500-inch stuff, and we're going to commit more time to Sportsman racing. But like, do you feel like you've got a run in you here to like go continue down this pathway? Do you feel that there's enough opportunity in the mountain motor thing to keep you hooked for the next few years? Or I mean,
I very much enjoy it. I enjoy the driving. I enjoy the chance to be able to win. Let me try to get this a little higher here. Okay. Yeah. I enjoy being able to be competitive to win. But let me tell you what I'm getting. I'm really digging having to be able to stand behind the car and see Randy Lynn do well in the car. There's so many times that thing takes off, and I kind of laugh inside thinking, holy shit, she's in that car. You know what I mean? And she'll tell me the same thing. I can't believe you let me drive a car like this. But she's doing very well. Who knows? We're definitely going to shoot for this championship this year and see what goes from there on.
Because she, like,
that's awesome.
You talk about star power. Homegirl's got it.
And she don't want it. She loves talking.
That's what kind of makes it, though, Bo. Yeah. I mean, that is, that she
it's
is
natural.
Humble.
Like
you'll never convince her that people like watch her or follow her, because we'll be walking somewhere, whether it's at a circle track race, and hey, there's Bo and Randy Lynn. We're kind of like a one unit. You know what I mean? Both together, because
she's the nicest person in the world too. That helps.
But dude, when you all come to actually watch her race, what she's grown from your race, you're gonna be blown away. Because if she does not win a race or multiple races this year, I'd be shocked.
I myself, and whenever, dude, doing a burnout in those cars is an intimidating thing. So like, just to have her having the success that she's had early on, and then I don't know. I'm with Bo. I think she's about to be a real problem out here for these guys. We lost your audio, Bo. You're gonna have to come back one last time. He's done this about 6 times today's guys, so bear with us. But we're gonna get Bo right back, and we'll cut him loose, dude. But it is pretty amazing to see her go from racing, not a slow car, but like a stock eliminator car that's like pretty manageable, to diving into one of the most notoriously hard to drive cars in the world. Like, that's kind of insane. With no real primer. Bo, we won't keep you too much longer.
Hey, I'm sorry. My mom.
No, we were just bragging on Randy Lynn, because it's like to jump from like what, a 10-second car to a low 6-second car with a manual transmission that, like I said, is hard to drive, hard to do a burnout in, hard to stage, hard to hold the clutch pedal down. I mean, that's some of the things that people don't realize, is that everything about this is complicated. It's loud as shit in there. And the fact that I was actually genuinely concerned. Like, are we being assholes to Randy Lynn at our race? Because I go, because it's like, I don't want to set her up for failure. You know what I mean? I don't want to put her in a position where the first race she's ever in is like the world is watching, but she owned it.
She was pretty nervous though, wasn't she, Bo?
Oh yeah, she still gets nervous, but every run I see her growing and learning, and it's very cool. Like, again, I'll stand behind it, and dude, it's a whole different feeling for me. As I've had kids at junior raced, I've helped other people race stock, super stock, this thing, but seeing that in that car and her make a good run and turn a wind light on, dude, it's a whole different feeling than actually being in a car. But it's going to be neat to see how it pans out and what the future holds. So
what is the schedule? So we got Bristol.
We have Bristol, Virginia.
Okay, Virginia will be a barn burner.
We go to Brainerd, Minnesota.
That'd be a great one.
And then we go to Reading, and then we finish in Vegas.
That's gonna help. That's actually a great schedule, because you make a great point. So many of the people out here that have the resources or the desire to run these cars, they can't be gone 20 weekends a year. I mean, that was part of your challenge, right? I mean, you can't run a business and be gone 22 weekends a year plus testing.
Sure.
That's a big bite.
Yeah, it makes a difference, but I don't know. It's still, listen, dude, we all love drag racing, every form, and we're going to be a part of it as long as it's out there. So we'll do all I can, like you all do, to keep it going, to keep it growing, keep it strong. So I hope everybody that watches this comes out and watches Mountain Motor. Hope they go watch a bracket race this weekend. But just go support it and then jump in a car. That's the easy. I don't care if it's a street car, whatever it is. Just jump in a car. It's a blast.
It's Justin Bond said it on this show a couple of years ago. He goes, it's all relative. Like, if you've never been in anything faster than a new GT Mustang, it's going to be a thrill. Yeah. Like, it's going to be the coolest thing we did at the World Series is we had shout out to our buddy Flying Ryan Oler and the team at El Bandito Tequila. Yeah. We had all those Mustangs, and I made it a priority on Saturday morning to make sure that all my staff, many of which who had never driven a car, like made a pass, because you can't really. It doesn't have to be a 2,000 horsepower pro stock car to be fun. Like, some of the most fun I've had racing was in bone, street stock stuff. Yep. And it's important to go have that experience, because you have a different appreciation for it when you've rolled through that puddle of water and you've got a burnout. You understand it a lot more. And like my wife, she can't wait. I forgot to record. So they recorded every run, and I rode with Alicia, and I didn't turn the camera on, and she's still pissed about it. She's like, I want my first ever run on video. And I'm like, I'm sorry, honey.
I didn't realize how many people didn't really like know how to do burnouts or anything like that. I guess we just grow up doing that.
We really take so much of that for granted, that
we do
day in, day out for us. But there's a lot of people that really are missing it, and it's up to us to get them out there.
I agree, man. Well, Bo, thank you so much, man. Joe, go jump on the bird and go win 50,000 this weekend. Keep us posted. Thanks for all you do for the sport of drag racing. You're for sure one of the good ones, man. We appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate you guys. See ya.
No problem, buddy. Talk to you soon. All right, guys, real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to our show sponsors. I don't have my scripts in front of me, but I just want to make it known that this show would not be possible without the support of people like Mark Beatty and the team at Redline Synthetic Oils, Mark, Art, the whole gang down in Houston, Texas. Incredible people that spread the love, man. They support the sport of drag racing. It's been incredible to see what Mark and company have done over the course of the last few years, kind of spreading the red line colors all throughout the sport of drag racing, not just in NHRA, not just in PDRA, but pretty much anywhere people drag race, you're going to see that Red Line Oil logo. Same goes for Tommy and Anita Cunningham and the whole team at Stroud Safety in Oklahoma City, manufacturers of the finest safety equipment on the planet Earth, all 100% American made. So huge shout out to Stroud Safety, Red Line Synthetic Oils, our streaming partners, flowracing.com. You got to get on board with the flowracing.com movement. And yeah, man, JT, let's dive into a little bit of Q&A. I feel like we've got a good thing going in the chat here today. I worked to get Sean Murder Nova, Sean Ellington on the show today. He's traveling. We're going to try to have Sean on. Scored his first win in No Prep Kings competition. How crazy is it? I mean, how crazy is it that this was his first invitational win?
Yeah, it is nuts. He kind of struggled, well, I mean, I don't know if you say he struggled. I mean, just the level of competition went up in a hurry in that deal.
It really did. I mean, you went from a bunch of like back half fast street cars to basically slowing down a little bit pro mods. Yeah, I mean, the water got deep in a hurry. But it's cool to see. The coolest thing that I think that's happening in No Prep Kings is even with all this, drama around what's going to happen with the TV show. Is Discovery involved? Are they not? Are they going to air season 6? There's all this hubbub, but the stands were packed. 2 events in a row. I think the first 2 of maybe 5 straight, and these places are packed out, pandemonium. And it's incredible to see the fanfare. But again, it just goes to show you that it really doesn't have that much to do with the cars or how fast they go. I mean, my favorite point to make is that they don't even turn the scoreboards. They don't even turn the scoreboards on at those races. Right. Nobody knows if somebody went 395 or 420 or 190 or 220. They don't know, but it's deeper than that. The show extends far beyond the on-track product. Huge shout out to Rodney Smith and the gang at the Top Eliminator Club, the Top End Club, excuse me. They raised $6,100 Saturday night for awesome. The Drag Racing Association of Women. So that's really a cool thing, man. Congratulations. I did get to see Jim Parks. First time I've seen Jim.
Really?
In like,
I didn't even know he existed.
A year. Old Jim was there crewing on the family funny car, top alcohol funny car. They had a dozen top alcohol funny cars flying this past weekend. A bunch of cars in the mid to low 5s, 530s.
Jim doesn't like me.
Went a 528.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Jim doesn't like me. He never comes to an event that I'm at. You ever notice that?
It could be personal.
It could be.
Do you think it's personal? It could be personal. Let's see if Jim says anything. I think Jim hates
maybe scared. I mean, I like, he's got drink hard racing. I mean, I'm there for that.
Oh, dude, it was great to see the drink hard guys. I didn't get to spend as much time with him as I wanted to, but Mike Copeland, Tom Wooten, just to get to hang out with those guys a little bit this weekend was a lot of fun, man. Some great people. We got Pro Mod drag racing back underway at the Midwest Drag Racing Series next weekend in Tulsa. They've had a really tough start to the year, back-to-back weather issues at their first 2 events of the season. I'm excited to see them. How about the drag strip in Kansas City? Have you seen this place? This is going to be a spectacular thing for drag racing in the Midwest. It's huge shout out to Scott Higgs, Blake Housley, everybody involved, Mark Mickey, everybody that's been involved in putting that deal together, because man, it's been long overdue for there to be like a real marquee attraction for drag racing in the Midwest. There's a lot of great drag strips, a lot of really cool facilities, but man, Flying H, they're planting their flag in a big way. I'm excited to see what happens there. This Pro Mod race this fall is going to be spectacular. I'm excited for that.
No Prep Kings there, I think the end of May.
And we're going to try to come to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was on our schedule, was it not? I was just pulling up my calendar here real quick to see if... what else is going to be lit that I think a lot of people are talking about? Jim Halsey's $50,000 to win invitational at Cecil County. I mean, dude, this is exciting for me. Do you think that we're about to see more and more of these, right? More and more, nothing personal, he says. Okay. Nothing personal. I think it is personal. I know Jim, and I just don't think you guys line up.
No, I'm kind of heartbroken about it, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just joking. But I am excited for Jim Halsey's race. It's cool to see these independent. I've felt like this was coming for a long time, and I don't know that we'll ever see chasing championships go away. But it's kind of like your golf deal, right? Like the Scramble Tour, just creating these individual happenings that aren't all married together. Like
right.
I don't, you know what I'm saying? Where you just go get in where you fit in.
One of the biggest things about what we do, you know, when we go around to these tournaments and stuff, is just that we've made friends with everybody over the years so much that they're almost like family. Like now they're in, you know, when we go to these other towns, we stay at people's houses. You know, they throw big parties for us every night. They set up stuff for us. When we, you know, the hell, they're in our weddings now. You know, like we're in each other's weddings, and it's like a reunion every time you go to an event. And I think that most of these events can turn into that.
I agree. I would love to know everybody's opinion. This was something that was a real buzzworthy happening over the weekend. Weigh in the comments, guys, on what you make of this whole Bob Tasca situation that took place over the weekend.
Oh yeah.
I don't have that clip queued up, but for those that haven't been following along with the drag racing news, and we talk about that a lot. We've got a real hardcore audience here, and we don't gotta always like.
I've got it, but it's long. It's like 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 7 minutes long. But basically, over the weekend, Bob Tasca had a situation where his intake manifold was deemed illegal because it had been modified from its original version. You can do some research on the internet and get more details. There's actually a fantastic story that Kayla Zadell, our director of digital content, put up on dragillustrated.com. But basically, this intake manifold had been, I don't know what the word is, some sort of treatment prior to flow benching the intake manifold, which is a very common practice. Most of these shops have flow benches. Most of these teams have access to one or have somebody that they work with to flow their manifolds. Apparently there was some sort of, I don't want to say exactly what it was and then have it held against me, but some sort of sand blasting type of situation, soda blasting or whatever, changed the color of the manifold. It was argued that there was no,
excuse me.
There was no dimensional changes to the manifold.
Right.
None. However, I do understand there's a comment here. Throw that up there, JT from Drag Racing Mayhem, who I want to give a shout out to. Always gives us great commentary in here, and I really appreciate the way they pay attention and follow along and participate in the conversation. So thank you guys. But they make a solid point here. I mean, bottom line, broke the rules. You can debate whether he got an advantage from it, but it was a rule, and it was broken. It was glad to see transparency from NHRA through letting the fan base know what happened. I did think it was interesting the way they put out a statement. We're seeing the NHRA do some things differently that I kind of like. Like if the NBA has an issue with a player, they're going to put out a statement about it. They're going to say something about it. They're going to acknowledge it. And I think that type of thing is important. This is a weird one because I agree with some of our commentary here. Rodney Smith saying, I think NHRA has him under the microscope since that 341 run at Bradenton. I think there is some truth to that. I really do. I think that there's a whole lot of people that don't want to acknowledge that run because it didn't happen within the NHRA. But I'm telling you, I said this to Brett Kepner, and I'll say it. I've said it on the live feed during the race. If that run in Bradenton wasn't accurate, no run in the history of fucking drag racing is accurate. I mean, there has never been a drag race where there has been more effort put into assuring the accuracy of the timing system than was done for the Pro Superstar Shootout. We had Bob Brockmeyer there from CompuLink, new tree, new sensors, new infrareds. I mean, we did everything possible to make sure that nothing that happened at the event could ever be questioned. And I didn't know if that 340 run was going to happen. I'll admit that I had my fingers crossed. Like every time the sun started to go down and we pulled Nitro cars to the lanes, I go, please, God, like, please let us have this 341 or 340 run. And
he explains it here, and we can talk.
I would just play it. Yeah.
Top Fuel Dragster.
Welcome back live to Concord, North Carolina at Z-Man Dragway. It is the 4-wide national.
Go ahead,
the second of two.
Yeah, I mean, so this is
another winner of the
I do think Brian and Tony Pedregon were caught a little off guard here. Go ahead.
Hey,
Bob.
listen, we've had better mornings. This morning I spent with NHRA Tech, and you know, not to derail the show, but we're not quite sure we're going to race today. Quite frankly, we may pack up and leave. And the harsh reality is that our run last night was in question due to our manifold. We put an AJ manifold on our car. First time we have ever done that at a race. And we flow our manifolds. And the reason why we flow them, and Tony will attest, there is no two manifolds the same.
Sure.
They're different. And quite frankly, AJ's is one of the best ones that we've flowed for consistency, but they're not the same. And we do that because we want to know how to
feed the fuel to
each nozzle. And as a result, to flow it, and again, I'm not an engineer, I don't know how to flow it, but they clean it, they acid wash it, because it goes on a flow machine at Wilson, and he gives us the numbers. It changes the color. This is, we're having a conversation right now about color of the manifold. There is no dimensional change to the manifold. The manufacturer, Alan Johnson, who makes the manifold, met this morning with me and said there's no dimensional change with the manifold. So a dimensional change is a performance advantage.
Sure, like in your street car, if you poured a manifold.
Color is not a performance advantage. But in the NHRA rulebook, any modification, any form of modification is deemed not allowable. Well, we lap manifolds. We sand blower cases to fit the blueprint of blower. We blow up cylinder heads, we weld them, and there is not a cylinder head that is repaired back to the factory original, not a single one. So it gets back to common sense. In Gainesville, I gave all my manifolds to NHRA, force manifolds at the time we were running.
To me,
they're different colors. They were flowed. We gave them to them and said, listen, we just want to make sure there's no drama with any of these manifolds. They gave them back to us. They did not tell me I couldn't run them. But today they tell me, well, we gave them back to you, but we didn't tell you that they were legal. I said, okay, so you gave me a part back to run. So now all of the manifolds in my trailer have been flowed, every one of them. I don't have a part to run this race. So at this point, I don't know if we'll run this weekend. And it's just a shame that the truth is not harmed by the truth. If we did something wrong, if we dimensionally changed the part, it's unacceptable.
Sure.
Changing the color, and I would deal with it, I would accept it, and I would move on. But to change the color, there's no dimensional change, which means there's no performance advantage. Because Wilson uses a technique, whether he bead blasts the surface to clean any burrs, acid washes it, whatever he does, that's his process.
It's made out of magnesium, right?
It's made out of magnesium.
Yeah, so magnesium changes color.
I don't know, but for us to be, I think they DNQ'd my run. I think it's DNQ'd. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Did not hear about that yet.
So I think it's DNQ'd. But if that's the ruling, then I'm going to pack my stuff up and leave, and we'll have to regroup for the next race, because I'm not going to go start taking parts out of the pit, putting it on my race car that I don't know what they are, and blow up a race car out there going 335 miles per hour. But it's just very frustrating as a racer, and it's a shame that we got to talk about this, but that's what I'm dealing with.
Where did this start? For instance, did somebody say, hey, go look at his manifold? Like, where did
it actually started in Gainesville. Started in Gainesville. There was rumors that we were running illegal manifolds. And I said, beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, because here's all our manifolds. Like, we gave them to them.
Sure.
If they're illegal, something's wrong, tell us. They gave them back. We ran them all through the season. We've been testing this AJ manifold. We think it's better. I mean, racers are trying to find better parts.
Yeah.
We did the same thing. We flowed it. We wanted to see the difference between the part we were running and the part we're going to put it on. Logical thing to do. And get some nozzle numbers on it, which we did. And we ran it here yesterday. And they came in our trailer, just want to start taking manifolds. And they came to me today. They told me there were no dimensional changes. However, the process that Wilson uses did change the color. They don't like the term bead blasting, whatever that is. I went to Alan Johnson, the manufacturer. Yeah. I said, AJ, if my guys are doing something wrong, tell me right now. He said, there's no dimensional change. We would like to know what Wilson's doing to change the color of it.
You know,
which is fine, logical question. But
when common sense
there is no dimensional change with the manifold, period.
Let me just interject this. From my experience, when you're dealing with magnesium, aluminum, there are certain cleaners that you can spray to clean a part that'll change the color. Are there any other teams that send their intake manifolds to get flowed from Wilson?
That was one of the things that they said. The answer to the question, I don't know what Wilson flows or doesn't flow. There are a lot of the big teams that have their own flow benches. We can't afford a flow bench to do that type of work. We don't have that type of equipment at our shop. I'm sure Force does. I'm sure Schumacher does. So we send our part to Wilson Manifolds.
Yeah.
So can't answer the question, Tony.
Yep. And how long? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, I mean, anything from guys used to use oven cleaner to polish magnesium wheels back in the day. Even a soda blaster would probably change the color or something. So I guess the next natural question is this an ongoing conversation, or is the case closed here?
I don't know. I mean, they left my trailer. I told them, I said, if we're having a conversation about dimensional change, I take that very seriously. I take my reputation very seriously. And I will address it. I'll address it publicly in front of the cameras.
Well, yeah, because that's clear-cut cheating.
It's clear-cut cheating. Yeah. But if the manufacturer said there's no dimensional changes, NHRA told me this morning there's no dimensional changes. However, the finish, the color is different. Well, I don't know how that is a performance advantage, but per their rule book, it doesn't have to be a performance advantage. Any modification at all, which is a very slippery slope.
So you have to define modification.
Now let's have a definition of modification, because the blower cases are modified.
So I think thanks for playing that video, JT. And I think it was worth watching and just kind of hearing it all out and getting it back fresh.
He lays it out. He lays it out pretty good there.
He does. However, I mean, here's the thing. I have close personal friends that are involved with the NHRA technical department, one of them being Lonnie Grimm, who I have a lot of faith and personal belief in. Lonnie has been a part of almost every event that I've ever put on, everything that we've ever done here at Drag Illustrated. He has been either intimately involved or at least on the fringes. He's a phone that I will ring. He's someone that I will lean on. And I think that Lonnie is a great guy. And I want to believe in my heart of hearts that this isn't some sort of diabolical NHRA versus, I understand it's fun for all of us to talk about this whole 341 deal and Bob being under the microscope. And there's probably a certain part of my own ego that wants that to be the case, right? Like, I want that to be like, yeah, they're coming after my guy, blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is that I can't imagine it being that petty. And if the rules say no modifications, changing the fucking colors and modification. Like, so I mean,
is it?
I don't know. I mean, if this is how it comes, I mean, because here's the thing. I'm not saying anybody did anything intentional, because here's a really big, like, thing that has to be acknowledged under the veil if you're talking about common sense, Bob Tasca III is on the Ford board of directors. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who has a lot to lose, right? Like, he's putting his life in jeopardy. Like, there's a lot of layers to that onion. I mean, this is a guy that is a very, very significant person in the automotive space.
There's Ricky.
So I have a little bit, Ricky, you missed it, man. We talked about you with Bob, with Bo Butner for a half hour. But the thing about that whole particular situation is, like, I understand if that's in the rule book. I think that a lot of this, what do I say all the time at our races? What I say all the time is that rarely is it the news. It's how the news is delivered. And I honestly think that this is just a communication issue. I think that this probably should have been better communicated. It should have been better. It should have been better handled across the board. I think that if Bob Tasca gave you all these manifolds in Gainesville and they were given back to him, there should have been a conversation about whether or not they were good to go or not. And I think the NHRA has to be wary of bending a knee to people, because a lot of this stuff typically is rumor driven. Hey, they're running a cheated up manifold. They're running this. They're doing that. And that shit happens every single weekend. I mean, Ricky Smith's in the comments and he can tell you how often he's had to deal with that. Like, anytime you're running good, anytime you're running out front, setting records, winning races, you're going to have a target on your back. And I think that sometimes this is part of, like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Bob Tasca's got the baddest nitro funny car on the planet Earth right now, undisputed. But here's the coolest part of this whole story is the fact that Bob went over and went to Bobby Mart, went over to Bobby Lagana's pits, the Capco Torrance pit area, and said, hey, we need a manifold, or I'm sure they probably offered one up to him. This is not something that doesn't happen fairly frequently. I mean, it's well known that Steve and Billy Torrance have every imaginable extra spare. They go over there, they borrow an intake manifold, they put that son of a bitch on that Ford Mustang funny car, and they go run 338 and change. And to me, that was like the ultimate stick it to them.
It was, yeah.
You know, like that was for me, like, even though Bob didn't win the race or whatever, he did win the mission, as he called it, the taco challenge, I think, the mission food, the Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge. But that, to me, was like he won the weekend. Like if he would have went out there and ran like high 320s for speed the rest of the weekend, I think that he would have gone to Chicago in a couple of weeks with a lot of eyebrows raised. Like all of a sudden this guy goes from 338, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, they've lost 10 mile an hour. So the way they were able to pick up where they left off, I mean, it took them a run or so to get right back to where they were. But I think that was a statement for Aaron Brooks, Todd Okahara, everybody that's involved in that team. And I'm sure like the emotion that you see in Bob there is a guy being called out or singled out and saying, hey, I'm not out here to cheat. I don't want to, I can't imagine a world.
Your reputation, your pride, your ego, it's all on the line right there. When somebody calls you out on that. So, I mean, yeah, he has every right to be a little bit pissed off,
I think so. I mean, and it's a tough situation. What?
Did you see he came out with t-shirts?
Yes, which I thought was hilarious. I think it's hilarious. I'm getting shirts made that say 341.68 on them. I think we need to hang our hat on that probably more than we do. That's probably the only exact mile per hour that I can reference off the top of my head. I mean, there's a couple of them, but 341.68, I've typed that so many times over the course of the last couple months. That it's hilarious, but I'm really glad that they were able to salvage the weekend. I will say there was a part of me that said, you know what, man, I don't know that there's anything wrong with packing up and leaving. There was a part of me on Saturday when I watched that video, I go, you know what? I don't know that that's all bad, right? Like, I don't know that it's a terrible thing for them to put their foot down but at the same time, I think that would have raised eyebrows, right? Like, okay, if you choose not to race, but I also understand these are not street cars. I mean, you go out there with unproven parts or stuff that you're not familiar with, or you don't know where it came from, or somebody else's old takeoff. I can't imagine, like I said, being Bob Tasca III, being on the board of directors at Ford Motor Company, having a lot on the line and just rolling the dice like that. I mean, it's a dice roll when they get in those cars and they're perfectly prepared and everything is intimately understood and known. And you have all this data that you can lean on. But to go out there and just throw something of a wrench in the gears at 335 plus miles an hour, I understand. I understand the hesitancy to do that, but it's kind of an interesting thing. And I don't think this story's over. I really don't. I think that there's probably more competition in the Nitro ranks right now than there's perhaps ever been. Like what we lack in terms of quantity, yeah, I know everybody loves to reference back to the late 90s and early 2000s. We got 30 cars showing up in Top Fuel and Funny Car. We got more cars than we know what to do with, but the cars we have right now are incredibly good. I mean, Top Fuel, everybody is talking about Justin Ashley in Top Fuel. I mean, the kid is unconscious. 040 lights consistently in a Top Fuel dragster. It's unheard of, but it's a demonstration or evidence of the ever increasing level of competition. It's not, I think that there have been points in time in drag racing where in Top Fuel and Funny Car, the cars that won had the field covered by several numbers. If they went out there and went green, they were probably going to drive around whoever left on them. That ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. It is no longer, that's no longer enough. Just having the fastest car is not enough. And I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, it's probably a really good thing. And it's just going to be an evolution on the NHRA side of how they handle these things, how they're handled in the public eye, because that's the really big difference is all these conversations were happening a decade ago or 20 years ago, and all this type of stuff was going on, but there wasn't social media. There wasn't all these ways to communicate your message to the masses, and people are clued in. And what I'm hoping that we're seeing is a little bit more transparency and a little bit more proactive action from the NHRA, putting out that statement, whether you disagree or agree. I think it's a step in the right direction.
Did they put that statement out did they put that statement out though before or after his interview?
True. I mean, I think it was after.
I mean, then you're doing damage control, and that's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I mean, I mean, I'm sure that they were doing some amount of damage control because that deal got a lot of legs online. But people love controversy. People love these type of things, and I guess that's my point. Is that when it happens, maybe the answer is to lean into it, like, and say, hey, you know, here's our perspective, or here's our side of the conversation. Because I do think that they're going to need to. I mean, I suppose it could be argued that they don't have to answer to anybody. It's their sandbox. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I had a racer tell me, well, it's their sandbox. Well, I don't know. Like, if you're trying to grow the sport and you're trying to take it to this proverbial next level, you're going to have to act the part. Right. And a lot of that, I mean, look at all the press conferences we see and all the addressing the media, like every UFC fight. And I know I use this example a lot, but it's true. I mean, they face the music every weekend. I mean, if they've got a fighter that spits in the face of some reporter, Dana White or one of those guys are staring into a camera, having to address it immediately. Like, if they have a fighter, Conor McGregor throws a freaking dolly through the window of a minivan, they've got to talk about it. They've got to own it. They've got to address it. And I do think that that's one of the things that, while the NHRA, like, they're growing those departments and they're getting more people involved, they're going to have to be a little bit more, you know, forward with this type of thing and get someone in front of a camera.
We said that, but they don't, you know, they never do, you know, and it's kind of sad that they don't, you know, because I think the racers deserve it for one, and the spectators do too, you know.
That's how we grow. Is
the racers for sure deserve more of it. You know, you went through it last year, with Matt Smith's deal and Erica and Clay and maybe Greg Anderson earlier. You know, I mean, they're just like, you know, everybody was pretty worked up about it, you know, and it's going to keep continuing. And I do think that there's a little bit of common sense that has to go into this, you know, like if it didn't change the dimensions, you know, okay, maybe smack them on the wrist and say, well, don't do it again. Or, you know, it's going to have to stay the same color, but you can't take them, inspect them, give them back at Gainesville, and then just, you know, willy nilly, just all of a sudden, boom, lower the boom on them, you know.
I mean, but the answer is for NHRA to state their case.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I think that's the answer, is that's what I'm saying I think is lacking, is that when you see things like this, I just said, everybody loves controversy and whatnot, right? They do. And when you have that type of stuff, like, feed them. Like, hey, Bob's said his piece in a multitude of different ways. Who's on our side of the fence? Because, I mean, how many times have we reached out to NHRA for a comment on something and gotten crickets? Right. I mean, in that, I know that's the case for a lot of people in the media, and our drag racing media is, you know, pretty few and far between at this point.
Even their stars, they struggle with getting answers.
I mean, I think that was like my favorite thing out of the whole deal, was the way that Bob just like
laid it out
and took it. I mean, he even said that, like, if we were doing something illegal, I will own it. Like, I will face the music. I will talk to the cameras. I will do the things. And that's really, you can't pick and choose. Like, a lot of these things go hand in hand. And maybe I'm the only one that wants more for the sport of drag racing, but like, I cannot stop thinking about the fact that we've been drag racing cars since they made the second one. I mean, the first thing they did was build car number 2 and line them up and see which one was faster. Like, so how is it that the great American motorsport, something that is as pure as the driven snow, pure as American as apple pie, drag racing, 2 cars line up, we've all done it, legally, illegally, everywhere in between. You've got a sport that is readily accessible to the masses. I mean, Bo Butner said it a second ago. You don't got to have a pro mod to go drag racing. You can go drag racing with your minivan. You can go drag racing with your bone stock street car. I mean, you can go to the racetrack and get your feet wet in any type of car. Yeah. So like, to have this level of accessibility, how is it that our sport is still sucking hind tit across the board? I mean, that is a problem. Like, why aren't, like, we were just looking at Spencer Massey's big explosion from Pomona last year, creating some social content for Racers Club. And it's like, why wasn't that on Sports Center? Why aren't we in the mainstream sports conversation? We need to be like, this sport speaks to a lot of people, and there is a lot of opportunity here. You don't got to look any further than No Prep Kings and Street Outlaws and all these automotive shows, Fast and Loud, Gas Monkey Garage. I mean, there's a gazillion of them. Diesel this, Diesel that. Car culture, this deal is not going away. Like, I really feel that we're having something of a renaissance. I mean, Tesla is using drag racing in their promotional materials to sell Cybertrucks, right? Like, this is, it works. Drag racing works, but we're not telling the story correctly. And we're also, when given an opportunity, we're not doing the things that have to be done. Like, if you're going to throw someone out, you're probably going to have to do more than put a social media quote out. You're going to have a tech official on camera. You're going to have someone making the masses, because like you said, JT, the racers deserve to know what's your perspective, what's your argument, and the fans deserve to know. And until we start treating the fans like they matter, we're going to stay in this quagmire that we're in right now. The fans matter. Like, the reason the World Series of Pro Mod exists is because the fans matter. We heard the fans saying that we love this style of drag racing, and we support these different sanctions and series and major events all across the country. But man, it would be cool for there to be a singular place where all the hitters were there.
Yep. And
not separated amongst 70 different classes, but in the same, it's a Royal Rumble. And I think we answered the fans, and we're constantly trying to elevate the fan experience.
And I hope every year that deal gets more and more like that,
and it will.
Just the car and the class is just the vessel for racers from all around. Like, I know pro mod guys get a little bit upset with us when we bring someone in that's not a pro mod guy, but that's what this is. This is the best of the best. But
that's the point, is we're not exclusively listening to the racers. We listen to the racers, and there's perhaps no one that we listen to more than the racers, but we put an equal focus, or I mean, at least equal focus on what our fans want. And the fans want to know what the fuck is going on. They want to know who said what. Don't look. I mean, you can see it. This Bob Tasca thing is just an example. Like, people want to know. They want to know what's going on. They want to know why he got thrown out. Okay, so no dimensional changes. Heard. Never said the word dimensional more than I have in the last 72 hours. Like, I get it. But people want to know what's going on, and we've got to feed the beast. Like, these fans deserve to know what's going on. They deserve to know the NHRA side of the story. They deserve to know Bob Tasca's side of the story. And I think that at this point in time, we've really only gotten Bob's side of it. And I think Bob's side of it may be sufficient. But if we're really going to try to grow the sport of drag racing, we've got to lean into all these things. And if you've got the fans that want to know, they're hungry. They're hungry for this. I mean, we find it all the time. We can't create enough content. We can't tell enough stories. And this is a story to tell. It's something that people will latch onto. It's something that will not force people, but will encourage people to choose sides. And that's the other thing that you said or in our team conference call yesterday, is that it's cool to see Bob owning this moment. Like, I think a lot of people would run and hide. I think a lot of people would slide the trailer doors shut and say, no comment. But he has addressed this head on. Social media, he's putting out stuff. He's putting a video on YouTube. He did that interview, and I'm fairly certain he sprung all that on old Brian Loans and Tony Pedregon. They probably were not adequately prepared for that conversation. They handled it masterfully. I think it was very well handled. But, like, there's clearly a desire to know what's going on, and we as a sport and the people that are in positions to drive that bus and to pour fuel on the fire, we got to own it. We've got to. Someone said here, like, we want to be big time, but we don't want to do the things that big time things do, right? And a lot of that is stuff that seems superfluous or seems perhaps unnecessary. An interview, a press conference, but you got to do it. I mean, that's the expectation that's being set. And I think the thing that drives me crazy, like probably within the NHRA, perhaps more so than anywhere else, is it feels like we have something of an ongoing identity crisis. Like we want to be Formula One or NASCAR so bad that we can taste it, but we're just not. That's not who we are. We're a bunch of rebels and outlaws, backwards hats, grease-stained shirts, work boots. Like, this is a real blue collar hardcore group of people, and like, let's not be something we're not.
Which might be more relatable than anything out there.
I'm telling you,
know what I mean?
that is like one of the
we're just missing the boat on getting it to the masses.
It's one of the tent poles of No Prep Kings is relatability. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's why they have those cars out there without logos all over them for the most part, and they've tried to keep that out. They don't have guys up there in crew uniforms and shirts. You know, they're trying to own who they are, who they truly authentically are. And it's like, we've got to do more of that. But on the same token, like, we can't say that we aspire to be in the realm of Formula One or in the realm of NASCAR or any of those things and not do stuff like this, right? Where we have controversy.
This was the perfect opportunity to address it. Yeah, this would have been the perfect opportunity. When Bob called you out, I think that would have been more than a graphic on social media.
I mean, and I really go back to the fact that I think that, and there's a great comment in here from NHRA Drag Racing Mayhem on YouTube. NHRA fans are the least informed fans I know compared to MPK, where everyone understood what was going on. And I mean, I think that there's been some MPK has to address some of these things as well, because one of the issues that I think that they've faced is that there's been no real path, to understand, like, how do you get on the show, or how do you do this, or how does any of this stuff works. But like, there's some truth to that. These fans, we've got to richen the experience for fans. They want this controversy. They want scuttlebutt. They want these things are going to happen, and they've been happening in our sport since day one. I mean, there's been rule controversy. I mean, the terrible towel with Bob Glidden. I mean, he crashes the car, barrel rolls down the car, climbs out of it, and puts his fire jacket over the intake manifold and the carburetors, right? Like that was the first order of business. I mean, he just barrel rolled a pro stock car, and the first order of business was to climb out of the car and cover up the carburetor and the intake manifolds. Like, so that, I mean, this stuff has always existed, but we've always, turned away from it or been like trying to act like it didn't happen. Well, hey man, this is content. It's all content.
Yeah.
I mean, lean into it, own it. You're like, hey, we've got big drama in the NHRA right now. Like, and yeah, I know that it's a double-edged sword, and you don't want to deal with that, and you don't want negativity out there. But we can't treat our sport with kid gloves forever.
You're probably getting more negativity by not addressing it. I mean, because it's just par for the course is what most racers will probably tell you, right?
I mean, I think so, and it goes back to you've got to put your fans first. The fans deserve to know what's going on. They deserve to know those, I mean, obviously there are things that fly above the head of most people, the casual fan, but we don't have, like, we've got to take care of our hardcore fan base. Like, we're also focused on getting new fans and getting new people out to the racetrack. And obviously that's important, but what about the hundreds of thousands of hardcore race fans that already exist? They deserve more. And if we provide them a richer experience, I mean, it's just like we talk about it all the time, the sports gambling and all these things. What NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all these sports have recognized is they need to richen the fan experience, find more ways for them to get involved, find more ways for them to become invested. Like, if you don't have a story to tell, give them an opportunity to bet on it, right? I mean, fan engagement and creating a better experience for our fans has to be paramount. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I mean, it's video games, it's reality shows, it's social media content, it's this behind the scenes stuff, which they've done more of that, but it does go deeper. It's like, hey, creating meaningful information, sharing the news, making sure that people feel like they're tuned in to what's going on. Like, I shouldn't have to go scour page after page after page on NHRAracer.com to find out that so-and-so got bumped or got thrown out because he punched somebody or whatever in the shutdown. Like, these things have to be discussed in a public. I mean, we can't pretend like we're in our infancy forever. Sometimes you got to act as if this is the biggest deal in the world.
Like it's okay to show that stuff now. I mean, really, like, go back 20 years ago and watch a show on ABC. Go watch a show on ABC now. I mean, you talk about night and day, the difference of content that you can put out that is okay in society today is way different than it used to be. Like, this stuff is content. People love it. We figured that out. 80% of the shows anymore are probably around reality shows, right? Which is nothing but drama.
Well, so I mean, Bo Butner, earlier in the show, Bo Butner mentioned the chip draw. And there's I can say a lot about doing chip draws at these races, but the main reason we do it is it's something for the fans to be involved in. It's another thing to feed our fan base. Like it shouldn't be, I don't want it to be like, hey, we did qualifying and now all the cars go on the ladder. I want to create a moment that the fans can follow along with. Like they love getting to watch those guys draw a chip out of a Crown Royal bag and find out who they're going to run. Like they love that drama. They love that unknown. They love that anticipation is significant. And you've got to find a way to deliver that however you can. Like there have been plenty of instances. Actually, there's probably no better example in World Series of Pro Mod. Mike and the gang, they didn't want to do chip draw for all the other classes, right? Because it's a lot of work. It's a pain in the ass. You got to go round all these guys up. You got to get them all up there. You can't draw without anybody. You've got to film it because you don't want anybody to think there's any funny business going on. I mean, there's a lot of shit to do those chip draws, but you do it anyways because the racers like it. It's a fun experience for the racers, but it's fun for the fans. It's exciting. I mean, we had people piling around to watch those chip draws. I mean, we made a big deal out of it at the Pro Superstar Shootout. We did it on stage, had a band playing, had people, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people piled up there to watch the chip draw, and it's just more for the fan. We've got to give more to our fans. Like we spend so much time talking about what can we do for tracks. You know, everybody's, going on like, hey, save your local racetrack. Hey man, encourage your local race fan. Like let's make people fans. I talk about this all the time. People are afraid to identify as a racing fan because of how shitty race fans are historically treated. I mean, they're treated like the help. Right? We treat those folks like the help. I'm those folks. Like, you know what I mean? Like I am a race fan. At the core, I am a drag racing fan that like found a way to earn my living in the sport of drag racing. And I'm thankful and I'm grateful and I feel blessed to live the life that I do. But at the root of it, I'm a drag racing fan. And I look at these drag racing fans that sit out in the hot sun all day, wait in long lines, park 1,000,000 miles away, do you think about, have you spent much time really thinking about how hard it is to be a drag racing fan? I mean, for all that we provide, there is so much more that we could provide. I mean, the downtime, the weather, all those things, all of our events are outdoors. And like certain parts of that, I get it. It's just part of our sport, right? But we have to care and we have to be vocal about caring about our fan base. Like, we have to find ways to improve that experience. And I don't really know that there's so many battles being fought at any given time. I recognize it and I certainly appreciate it. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's automatic. I'm not saying that it doesn't come without tremendous labor and effort and all these things and cost. I mean, look at how much money we spent just at the World Series, like tabling the Pro Superstar Shootout, all that VIP stuff, booze, food, all those things. It sucks. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars in catering we threw away, but it's the cost of doing business. It is what these folks deserve at this point in time. I went to the Mavericks game on Sunday afternoon to watch the Mavericks in Game 5 of the NBA playoffs. And it's like that experience from the moment you walk in the door, there's badass stuff happening. There's music playing, there's displays, there's vendors, there's all this stuff. And it's like cohesive. Right? Like the experience is impeccable from top to bottom. And to be honest, kind of closing notes, like I won't rest until the experience of the drag racing fan today is what it should be. And I hope that we can continue to yell and scream about it because we have to put our fans first. And sometimes putting our fans first is talking about this, like not so fun to talk about stuff. Right? Like, and don't look any further. If there's what was that kid who was street racing and wrecked his Corvette and ran into somebody on the Chiefs, the football player kid?
Rashid Rice.
Rashid Rice. Dude, that was like headline news for 2 weeks. You think the NFL or the Chiefs wanted to talk about that? No, but they had to, right? Because I think, to be honest, and that's obviously a bad deal, right? But it was what we had to talk about. Season's over. Right? Nobody's playing. We've got to talk about it. We've got to air it out. We've got to own it. And I would love to see some more of that across the board because I do think that, it breaks my heart to see, a comment in here that's like drag racing fans are the most uninformed fans in all of sports. And it's like, man, that can't be the case. This is sport. This is a sport that's supposed to be built on access, right? Like every ticket's a pit pass, and it's the only sport where you can come in and rub elbows with the stars. Yeah, but you can't find out what the fuck's going on. No one's going to tell you about some ruling. The stuff you want to know about, you can't find out about. Like we know who qualified where. We know that was a record run. We want all that other stuff is what matters.
They want the behind the scenes.
Right? It's no different. Like literally, my little girl Sophia, she comes home from school. The first thing I ask her, "What's the tea? Anything exciting happen to school? Any fights? Anybody get kicked out? What's going on? Any drama? You have to slap anybody?" I'm just joking, but it's like that. I mean, you want to know the tea. Everybody wants the inside line, and into the sport of drag racing, we've got all these characters that are hilarious and funny and passionate and wear their heart on their shirt sleeves. Let's own it. Let's take advantage of it. I mean, like, let's lean into that. It's an important thing. So anyways, man, yeah, what a show, dude. It was great to talk to Bo.
You have to bring your blood pressure back down now somehow.
Yeah, I know. My blood pressure, I'm going to have to get on that medication you're on.
Yeah. You have to get your ukulele out and yeah.
Here, I'll do it.
Oh, jeez.
You guys want to hear this is Play That Song by Train. Ready?
Oh, geez. Well, folks, another episode of the Wes Buck Show.
Anyways, man,
leave you with that.
I'll leave you with that. This may be the final episode. Did we just jump the shark like Fonzarelli? Yeah. I think we may have jumped the shark. That was a bit of a Happy Days moment, I think. But anyways, guys, hey, thank you guys all for being a part of this. It really is a privilege and an honor to get to come on here and talk drag racing with all of y'all. Remember to help us spread the gospel of drag racing. Don't just bring a friend to a drag race. Bring 50 friends to a drag race. Help us spread the good word. Go out, support your local racetrack. Be proud of being a fan. Don't feel bad about it. Wear your race car shirts. Tell people that you're a fan of the sport. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm a proud drag racing fan, and I hope you are too. JT, thanks for everything. Blake in the green room, appreciate you, brother. Bo Butner, all of our guests, appreciate you guys. Huge shout out to Ricky Smith if he's still watching, dude. Legendary performance. Yep. I honestly think he is the greatest of all time. No doubt about it when it comes to Door Slammer drag racing. He is on the Mount Rushmore. Guys, we'll see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if we don't see you there, we'll see you at the drag races. Talk soon.
Love y'all.